Friends, the Costco Wreath is back. And what that means is I'm going to show you what $20 and a whole lot of imagination can do to one basic wreath. So quick story, for the last 30 or 40 years, my mom has done the Costco Wreath glow up. You know, when we were younger, we didn't have an endless budget. You know, there were 3 of us, my dad was working, my mom was home. And so what she leaned into was her resourcefulness and her creativity. And honestly, it's become a super fun tradition that I now continue in my family. When we do a Costco Wreath glow up, I start with an image in mind of where I want to go. Online, there's so much noise about like, you should be decorating this way, you should be decorating that way. And for me, the second I see that, I'm like, oh, no, I do what I want. This is my jumping off point. This is the incredible Pyacantha, a gorgeous berry. If wildlife wants to come and pick these out of my wreath, don't care, love it. Next, I thought to myself, what's gonna go really well with this orange? And so I present to you teal and orange. You guys, this combination is so good. I have one other little orange surprise I'm going to show you later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. I think what we need to do now is let me go ahead and clear these extra little goodies away, and we're going to start stripping down this Costco Wreath because I'm going to get rid of something right off the bat that brings me zero joy. So the first thing I do every single year is get rid of these foam plastic coated berries. Don't worry, I'll pick them up. In years past, they used to wire these pine cones on separately, but now they actually wrap them in when they're creating the wreath. So I can't pop out my pine cones without creating massive destruction. So there's a couple different things that you can do that I've done in years past. You can try to move these a little bit, like give them a bit of a better position. I will also sometimes take smaller pine cones and wire them on top so I get like a cool little cluster. For this year, I think I'm just gonna leave them be. They're not offensive and they do add a nice little kind of woodland touch. All right, next thing. I was over in my neighbor Michelle's yard and she has the most giant juniper bush. And I don't know what it is about junipers, but for me, they give the scent of holidays. And so I'm going to start by adding more juniper to this wreath. And what's cool about juniper is you get these like really wispy, kind of like tendrils that still have quite a bit of structure to them. They also have scent. And so as my guests are coming in for Thanksgiving and for the holidays, I like that we're going to have that added scent at the door. So I'm going to start with just this first pile and I'm going to kind of go around, and instead of last year where I made little clumps and I put them all the way around and then I fluffed it out, this year I'm going one at a time because I want this to feel very voluminous and a little bit less expected. Basically, you just need a nice little stem. And then when you come in here, you're going to find an opening between your boughs. And you can really you can kind of find them pretty easily. But essentially, you're going to look for a little piece of wire and you're going to cram it in. All right, I'm going to continue to go around. And the other thing you're going to see me do is I'm going to put one juniper bough this way, one this way. Outside, inside, outside, inside, because what that's going to do is already, I don't know if you can see this, but already just adding these 2 juniper boughs here is a good ½ inch taller than everything else over here. So I'm going to get after it, and then we're going to come in for the next round of goodies. I'm just going to add one more little tiny bit right here. Already, this is more fluffy and it smells delicious. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear out the leftover juniper pieces. And the rest of these you can use as decor, you can compost them, whatever you want to do. I now have 2 more piles of kind of like a mid-toned green to bring in. And I brought them in for different kind of reasons. First and foremost, I did clippings from my mom's Arborvitae, and it has these little tiny cones right now, and I thought that might be cool. So that's an option there. But then I also found something really special at my mom's house. This is a California myrtle. And what I love about it is some of them are throwing berries. It is so awesome. I think I'm gonna use the California myrtle because I don't have anything with a blade in it. Now, mental note here, when you're working with a leaf as opposed to like an evergreen, like a juniper or a pine or something like that, these are gonna dry out in an arrangement much more quickly than these will. And so what you might wanna do is keep like a spray bottle, one of those continuous misters on hand, and give this a nice little shot. Or like last year, I didn't mind that my eucalyptus dried out. I actually really loved the look. And so for me, it's never really an issue. I just kind of roll with it. But I think this is the move, and I just love what it's bringing to the table here. And so these ones probably are a little bit too long, so I'm going to strip down so I get a nice little kind of entry point here. I'm clearing off probably 2 to 3 inches of a stem. And I'm going to go back through and I'm going to do the same thing of weaving this very randomly, going outside, inside, and alternating the texture throughout their arrangement. Oh, and by the way, when you are doing this, you always want to make sure that you're never stuffing it in on top. You're always going underneath with the direction, with the flow of your wreath. That is looking very good and very full. Okay, so far this is looking so good. And the volume on this, I'm doing kind of what I wanted. There's 2 ways that you can build and create volume. You can create volume by going outward, which is one of the things I did last year. This year, I'm trying to go a little bit more 3-dimensional. I'm trying to create like a super thick wreath for my front door. So if you notice right here, I'm doing a lot of pieces coming out from the wreath. So kind of almost, not vertical, but do you see how this has a nice upward swoop? These have a nice upward swoop. That's one thing to focus on if you want a nice, thick, fluffy wreath. I think I'm gonna push pause on my Arborvitae. I really, really like this, but I have some other things that I wanna add, and I wanna add a lot of blue tones to my wreath next. So I'm gonna put this aside for the time being, and I'm gonna bring in some really good stuff. The next pile of greens I'm bringing in are 2 different things. This is from my neighbor's Blue Atlas Weeping Cedar and a Carl Fuchs Cedar. Both of them, I love them. And what they do is, do you see how that blue, it's kind of like frosty and a really interesting habit. And so we've kind of started with the mid-story green, and now we're moving on to things that have a bit of blue in them. And the reason I like to go in kind of color order is to make sure I'm always layering my interest. And for some reason, my brain just works this way. So again, I'm gonna kind of strip off the lower part, so I've got a good couple inches. If you're having a hard time sticking things into the wreath, I literally cut my stem at an angle so it's a little bit sharper for poking in. So far, so good. I just double checked my spacing of the blue foliage that I'm bringing in, and it feels very even. Not like Littleton soldiers in a row, but it feels like it's got a nice flow to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear my bluish greens away. And I think I'm gonna bring in some color next. Welcome to the wild card pile. This is a whole grouping of things that I wasn't sure if I would use, but I like having things to play with. And this is kind of the fun thing if you were to do a party with friends and everyone brings greenery. It's like that extra added bit of surprise when someone shows up with something a little unexpected. Okay, first and foremost, I have euonymus. This is a variegated euonymus. I think it's probably a silver king, very similar to my one at the front door. And I thought that adds some really nice and bright kind of quality to the wreath. However, I think it might be too chipper chicken, and so I'm going to remove it from my pile. Now, what I'm left with here, now we're building some interest. And also, do you see how all of a sudden the browns from the pine cone start kind of becoming amplified? It's because I have things with a really beautiful kind of brownie tint to them. First and foremost, in my wild card pile, You guys, this is crazy, but I was at my mom's house and she has a Laura Petlum. I believe it's Chang's Ruby. It's a gorgeous variety, but I started playing with this and I just thought to myself, whoa, Nelly, that is so fun. Already I love it. Already I love it. Okay. Then she had a Miscanthus variegata and it had set all these incredible seed heads. And I thought to myself, okay, what if I put some seed heads in here? That is cool too. And wait, there's more. I was in our backyard and you know how we have the world's most giant magnolia tree there? Well, it has gorgeous foliage. What would happen if instead of putting it like glossy green like that, I varied up the texture and instead I tucked in a few of these leaves that have this velvety brown coming out of the wreath. You guys, that is so good. Okay, in classic Kate in her maximalist era, I will attempt to incorporate all of the things because I'm actually really freaking out about how much depth this reddy brown is bringing to the table. So with your magnolia leaves, a couple of just different things. First, if you can get a branch, like a small kind of tip, and then strip off all the lower leaves, maybe leaving like 4 or 5 of them intact at the very top, that is the best way to go and secure it in. However, you are left with all of these amazing leaves that I want to use. Now my wreath is full enough where I can just kind of tuck them in there, but the other thing I was thinking is if you're doing a wreath and you don't want it as maximalist as yours truly, you could do like a little dab of a glue gun on the end of this and then tuck it in and it would stay put really, really well. For me, I have so much going on that everything is sticking right in place. Also, you can totally use the glossy side or kind of that brown, pretty velvet underside. For me, I'm trying to build on my brown velvet tones. And so I really wanted most of my leaves to be facing with the underside out because I think it's just such gorgeous texture in a wreath. Friends, I really wanted to use my Pyacantha, but she has thorns like you wouldn't believe. And every time I try to stuff this little thing into the wreath, it gets stuck. So I've decided, this is like editor's note, I've decided I'm just going to use my dried orange slices. I think it's just going to be softer. So here is how I like to do a dried orange slice. First and foremost, this is paddle wire. You can get it at any craft store. This one is 22 gauge. And in my Felcos, there's like a little notch right at the base. And so that's what I use to cut the wire. Next, you can do one or you can do multiple, but it is so easy to just take your little wire here and poke it through the orange. And then what I do is I string it halfway through, I fold it down. Oh no! In lieu of my Pyacantha, I'm using my dried orange slices. I'm gonna take my, essentially, this is 22 gauge wire. And what you wanna do is you wanna feed it through about halfway and then fold it in half so you've got a nice little hook there. This is where you have to be fragile because you're gonna likely break one or two when you're doing this. Oh no! Then you just give it a little twist and you end up with kind of this type of a situation. Now you can do one of two things. You can do them as little singletons or you can do 2 at a time. It just depends on what you want to do. But I'm thinking I'm going to use this and I'm going to wire it directly into the wreath. The other option that you could do here is you could get out your glue gun and just do a little dab of glue on it, which probably, I don't know, depends on the look you're going for, but that would totally be fine. Now, the tricky thing to wiring up a wreath is you just have to get your little fingers on the backside to catch your little wires as you feed them through. And then you just twist your ends together. Okay, that is so cute. We do more. Guys, this is looking so good. Now, there's about a million different ways that you can do a ribbon. And some years I've done no ribbon. Some days I've done like a giant fluffy wired ribbon. This year, I kind of want to do something that feels a bit more loose and maybe a little bit more sculptural. So this ribbon has like a beautiful kind of satiny finish, kind of like a soft satin, but the edges are wired, which makes it great for shaping. And what I'm kind of thinking is I might actually put this on the door and then put my ribbon on. But what I would love is I want to do like a big loppy ribbon and have like the tails kind of weaving in and out of my oranges. So I think we're just going to put it up and maybe we'll see what happens. You know what? I almost wonder if I need to do my ribbon first. Okay, I'm having a change of plan. I'm trying not to get this on the completely drenched ground over here. But I think what I want to do is I think I want to do something really simple. I want to do just like a beautiful soft angle to the end of my ribbon. Oh no! I'm just going to do a beautiful, beautiful soft bow here. Oh yeah, that's gorge. Okay, let me grab a big old thing of wire here. And this is where I always futz because it's on my front door and I see it every day. Sometimes I'll like put new greens in or I'll play with the positioning of the bow. So what I've done is I've just fed a little bit of wire through the back end of my bow. So it's easier to put on the wreath. Let's see where I want this to reside. Kind of feel like I might want it up here. Yeah. By the way, I'm immediately regretting taking off my gloves. I didn't want to get my ribbon dirty, but now I've got sap all over my hands. Okay, let's put it on the door, see how she looks. Okay. Now, for me, I actually like the bow a bit off-centered. And then, this is where all of the futzing happens. Okay, so super cute. Okay, chances are 100% that I will continue to futz with this, but I love the idea that the ribbon is kind of like flowing through. And actually, you know what I think? I might actually want my ribbon to kind of go a bit more on this outside. Yeah. But what's really fun about using all of these different materials is you have so many different little pockets to play with. And so it can kind of be this like living, breathing thing. So with a small $20 Costco Wreath investment and maybe an hour of foraging with your family and friends, you honestly can create something so spectacularly unique. And I love that I get to reinvent my front porch just for my family every single year. Okay, I'm gonna see you in the next one. And in the meantime, say hello to your garden for me.